Okay, here we go. This is the briefing from Military Times for the week of November 22nd, 2019. A look at what you missed from the headlines while you were stuck in a submarine. Let's head to the surface.
From the Military Times newsroom, I'm Andrea Scott. In a controversial move, the Commander-in-Chief recently made good on reports that he would hand down a rare trio of pardons for service members accused of war crimes. 2 soldiers accused of murdering Afghans were pardoned by President Donald Trump last week. First Lieutenant Clint Lawrence was serving a 19-year sentence for second-degree murder, and Major Matthew Goldstein was facing charges for allegedly killing an Afghan bomb maker. The president also restored the rank of Special Warfare Operator Chief Eddie Gallagher, who earlier this year was acquitted of alleged war crimes in Iraq. In his own move, Gallagher this week filed an Inspector General complaint accusing the Navy's top SEAL of uttering ugly statements about the Commander-in-Chief. All right, time for some exercise. It's going to be a little more quiet in the Pacific as the U.S. has canceled a large-scale joint air exercise with South Korea as an act of goodwill toward North Korea. Defense Secretary Mark Esper said the move was not a concession to North Korea, which doesn't seem to have taken it that way anyway. Earlier this week, Kim Jong-un visited North Korean paratrooper forces in their own air exercise and posed for team photos. But let's head back to the home front. Mold. It seems to be everyone's insidious roommate in military housing these days, and it continues to plague families at bases around the country. 10 families in Fort Meade, Maryland recently sued their privatized housing landlord in federal court over failure to fix rampant mold, leaks, and other problems, leaving them stuck in puddling water and rotting wood. Families at Joint Base Lewis McChord in Washington are also saying living conditions have made them ill and forced them from their homes, with one family having to move into an RV since no other on-base housing was offered. Those families are expected to file a lawsuit in coming months. That's it from the headlines desk, but there's plenty more out there, so head to militarytimes.com for more.
All right, it's debate week for the Democratic presidential candidates, and Military Times' own Leo Shane has quizzed every major candidate on their proposed veterans and military policies. So let's head over to the Capitol to hear from him.
We've been tracking the 2020 election already. There's 13 or 14 Democratic candidates who are vying for the role of Commander-in-Chief. But so far, they really haven't been asked too much about how they would fulfill that role. We haven't seen a lot of questions about military and veterans policy. So we reached out recently to all the campaigns to try and get a sense from them what they would do on military personnel policy. What veterans issues do they think are the biggest? How are they going to tackle veteran suicide? And we got a really interesting response from each of them. So I think the big takeaway from what we saw is that there's not this uniform Democratic policy on military issues and veterans issues. I think a lot of times the Republicans like to paint it that way. Democrats are against defense spending. Democrats are about pulling troops back from overseas. We saw a lot of nuance in those positions, especially when it came to the issue of troops overseas. On Afghanistan, it is almost uniform. Just about all Democratic candidates have said it's time to bring troops home. But in the Middle East, there's a lot more subtlety there. Joe Biden, Pete Buttigieg, they've both said that they think there still should be a pretty strong presence over there. Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders said, no, it's time to really bring back those troops from overseas. Similarly on the defense budget, we asked folks, do they think it should go up? Do they think it should go down? Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders have been pretty strong about bringing down that defense budget. Cory Booker, too, has said we just spend too much on defense. But, despite what Republicans say, there are a few Democrats who say, no, we should at least keep that level. One of the things that was really interesting to us and to our audience is what each of them plan to do with military personnel policies. We heard from several of them. They want to tackle the issue of sexual assault, transgender recruits in the military. But one thing that jumped out to me is that both Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders said they want to see military wages go up. They think that it's too low. They think that the pay raises at minimum should keep pace with inflation. Joe Biden and Julian Castro both said they want to see real reforms in flexible service and in our recruiting and retention policies, just how the up-or-out system works and how we retain some of the longer serving troops. So we have responses from all the major candidates on there, a lot of information. Go to militarytimes.com and read through it yourself to find out where all these candidates stand.
Okay, it's time for an illumination round, and we spoke to one of the Army's first female explosive ordnance disposal techs about what it's like to work in a field dominated by men. Take a look.
Hang it, hold it, hang it, fire!
It was a blast. I didn't name is Keenan Skelly. I'm the Security Evangelist and VP of Global Partnerships at Circadence, a tech company. But I started life out as an explosive ordnance disposal technician. That means diffusing bombs. When I got to EOD school, I was the only woman there. When you're surrounded by a group of people who are completely confident in the fact that they should be there and you're not, it's very easy to go down that path of, well, maybe I'm not smart as these people are, or maybe I'm not physically as fit as these guys are. But you can't do that. Be who you are, be who you know you can be, and start to make that process better for people who might come after you. So for example, when I was first there, I kind of let some things slide behaviorally, culturally, that I didn't agree with. But when I started to think about other women who would be coming after me, then it was really important to make sure that there was a clear line of what's acceptable behavior and what's not. So both of those things, having this imposter syndrome, starting to really enforce and identify boundaries of what appropriate behavior is in terms of diversity and inclusion, those are things now that I'm experiencing in the tech world also. It's not unheard of for me to be in an executive meeting and be the only female executive there. In the tech world, just like in the Army, you still have to be unapologetically fearless. You have to get over the fact that you may not feel like you have the best skills, you may not feel like you're as good as everybody else around, but you are. You just have to feel that way and you have to own that behavior. So go out there, learn all of the tech, do all of the coding, do all of the hacking. You belong there, just own it. Be unapologetically fearless.
All right, that's it. Get out there and volunteer for something or take your dog for a walk. Head over to militarytimes.com for more or check us out on your favorite Chinese-owned social media platform.